Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 21st Working Group LTS meeting. My name is Jeremy, and I'll be the host today. Just a quick reminder before we get going, this meeting is covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. We're also recording this, so it'll be available on YouTube after the fact for anybody that didn't join us. Hey, everybody watching us on the internet. Today, we've got a little agenda. It's pretty light. The main topic that I wanted to cover was a proposal from Mo. Mo, do you want to take it away? You want to share your screen, or do you want me to bring the doc up and share my screen? What would be the best way for you to kind of go through that?
You can share it. I was gonna ask if folks haven't read it yet, to just maybe take 5 minutes to
Okay.
read it. It's very short.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good idea. Let me grab that just for easy mode for folks. Yeah, go ahead and take 5 minutes or so to read that, and we'll bring it up and kind of walk through it, and folks can share their thoughts. All right. Is anybody still reading through that?
I think you can probably take it from the top.
All right.
okay. So I guess since everyone's had a chance to read this, so I brought this proposal up a while back in the SRC meeting. So like Rita's not here and neither is Micah, but those folks were present because they're SRC members. Um, and I wanted to first float this by that set of folks because implicitly anything in this space involves an agreement to basically honor bounties and other things, right? Because you're saying that you're going to patch these CVs, for those releases, well, those folks have to be on board with that. So I wanted to start there. There weren't any objections from that set of folks, so at least that gave me some initial feedback that I could then start bringing to this working group, as well as all those other key stakeholders that I've kind of listed. But yeah, so the general high level idea is that my belief is that the work to do security backports is already happening within our ecosystem across a set of different actors. And it seems like it would make sense for us to try to consolidate some of that effort into the upstream. Trying to think through. I also didn't want to get into trying to define like what is a critical fix, what is like a regression, what is like quote unquote what's important.
Mhm.
So that's why I scoped it to just security fixes, because they effectively are very easy to find. Just find the CV number, and then and if it's a KK one, the answer is yes, we backport, and if it's a dependency, the answer is we backport as long as it actually has an impact. So I felt like the criteria there was very straightforward, without getting into like picking your favorite bug, basically, kind of territory. Let's see what else is there. The 2-year number just comes from sort of like some arbitrary desire to increase to a certain amount of time that's more in line with kind of what I've seen customers needing. It's not necessarily super specific. Like a yearly cycle, while not necessarily bad, is I think actually beyond what's normal for a lot of organizations, at least as far as like certification processes go. And like I said, like a lot of the work is already happening, so it seems kind of bad that we just have it in our downstream places and we don't actually give it to the upstream. There is technically an asterisk there. It's like one of the open questions at the bottom is, well, would this be sort of like a source only thing, or would we actually do proper binary releases? Certainly, I think maximum benefit for the community would come from binary releases, because I think a lot of folks in the community consume those.
I
I'm
think
just
that's
not.
definitely true. If you look at the usage from like registry.k8s.io, I think there's definitely a lot of people that consume those upstream releases and not the not not necessarily just the things that the vendors are maintaining.
Right. So I think that that probably leans heavily towards having binary releases. That being said, I don't actually know from like a SIG release perspective like how much work is actually necessary for a binary release versus like a source only tag release. That's why it's just an open question there. Um, of course, all of this comes down to like, well, how much is this going to cost?
Mhm.
It's going to cost a certain amount in like people time, and it's going to cost a certain amount in infra time. In a sense, I'm less worried about the people time, because I feel like the folks that are maintaining this stuff in their downstream, like they should just come maintain it here with us. And certainly, I think we can get some of the folks that Mike has been working with and some of the folks that I've been working with in Microsoft to contribute in this space, so that way we're not duplicating each other's efforts. The infra costs are less clear to me. Like certainly we can do less test runs, but there's only so much you can reduce test runs before you start getting your feedback and coverage from your tests. And I know we have desires to spread out our testing across more cloud providers to help use those credits and stuff, but none of this is going to be free for sure. I might stop there and see if folks have thoughts or comments.
I think we can probably work with the kids infra folks to figure out what that cost would be. I think we have been for not every set of patch releases and general releases, but I think for maybe the last couple of minors, we have done extra patch releases. So I think we can probably figure out like how much does it cost for us to go an additional month to have some of those things kind of maintained longer, because we have been taking security only fixes, mostly like Go related things. We didn't want to leave the last patch of like 126 vulnerable when we knew like a couple weeks before the last patch release was scheduled that there was going to be a Go dependency or a Go version bump or something. So we've done a little bit of that. I think it's been kind of not driven by any specific policy, just kind of our best gut feeling about what the right thing to do about some of those were. So I think we can probably go and look and see what the cost would be if we just kept the tests and stuff as is. I think it would be pretty significant to keep that going for an extra year. And I think there would probably need to be some extra credits or something identified for that. Just wild guess based off of what we see for the spend for now. And like if we made things go a year longer, there'd be like 6-ish things being supported at one time.
Because, if I understood you correctly, you're saying that for some existing releases, we ended up going maybe a little bit longer than the 14-month cycle because we knew some event was coming and it just made sense for us to just wait it out and get another patch in there, or delay the last patch so that even though it came after the 14-month mark, it covered some particular vulnerability that we knew was coming.
Yeah. I'll go back and look and see which ones we did that for.
Okay. And from that, we have some data on, well, how much did that extra time cost us, basically? And so from that, you can try to extrapolate out to, well, what would an entire year cost times the number of releases that you need to support?
So the question I had when I read this was, would these just be tied to the regular monthly release? So every month we still get the ones that with the CVE only, or is it only months that have CVEs? Like, that's what I was wondering. Is it just an extended one where they just keep getting builds every month, or is it on demand? Because if you look at 2023's CVE list, there was, I think, 7, and most of them were spread over like 3 months. So the other months they wouldn't necessarily need a build. That might save on credits.
Yeah, I mean the infrastructure is still running for some of that stuff. Some of the tests run in a reoccurring manner. It's not really based on the pull requests that are happening or when we do the builds. Like when we do the builds, it doesn't really trigger anything other than the cloud build jobs that run to do the builds themselves. I think that's a good question about, when if we did something like this and moved into to security only releases, where you're only backporting CVE fixes, I don't know that it would make sense to do them every month, because in a lot of cases there wouldn't be a CVE that would come back, and there probably wouldn't be any new content in the release. There might be Go bumps, but if there are Go CVEs that are released, so that I think maybe those things become kind of ad hoc, as needed, I guess. From a SIG release standpoint, we don't really have. I mean, the tooling does all of the things, right? It'll do the binary releases, it does the tags. That's kind of all integrated into one set of jobs. I think we would, if we were going to do Git tags only, like source releases, there would be some work that we would need to do to kind of enable that, because it's all locked down, right? Like most people can't go and just like push tags to Kubernetes. So there's restrictions and stuff that happens through some automation there. Yeah, I don't know. I think monthly patches when there's no content doesn't make a lot of sense. So they would be, to me, I think, better done as security releases where you're doing them as needed.
Right, and then you get two that are back-to-back weeks, and then you get 2 bumps. That was my, at least for our internal development, when we start going on demand, we can get some very busy couple weeks and then nothing for months, and that doesn't really.
I would guess it would be, there would be a release. We would do them monthly as needed. I don't think we would do a release and then next week there's another CV that's released,
Okay.
because
No, that's cool.
I don't think SRC would publish CVEs for, say, like 126, but 127, 128, 129 wouldn't get those. And we wouldn't publish the CVEs unless we were doing a release otherwise. And I think we would only do releases out of band if they were significantly bad CVEs. Like a 10 came in, and we might do a patch for that out of band.
So, okay, so it might be, something like in the SIG release framework that if there's been no changes on the branch, nothing gets, that it just doesn't do the build that month kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the when we do those releases, they are kicked off by a person, like
Yeah.
me or somebody else, specifically runs Krell, blah blah blah, this branch, and it does the things from there. And I think like if we were going to do this, I think we would just look at, oh, we know there's no CVEs this month, so we don't need to do a 126 release.
Okay.
We know there's CVEs this month. We know we need to do. Generally, we're coordinating with the SRC to know when there's things that SRC has to do to provide us information about CVEs when we do the release. So I think we would know that for sure.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
in the hypothetical future where we did do this, what would the SIG release experience look like in a month where we do have a security release and you're
Mhm.
doing the regular releases anyway because of the security thing, and then you need to do an extra one for something that would not otherwise be released? How much is that going to suck?
It would be a long process, mostly because we have to run the image promotion things in serial. So as we add more releases, the image promotion stuff as it stands today has to be done in serial. There's going to be work to redo the image promotion process because it's just kind of generally broken right now. I don't know if that would change things a lot. So we definitely would need to look at the additional time it would take to do these things. Um, it may stretch into like we do the security releases the next day, something like that, to split it over two, depending on how many there were.
Sort of continuing with the thought process of you have monthly releases and you may have security monthly releases if there was a need for them to exist. Would it make sense for the periodic jobs to also be sort of tied to that? So the periodic jobs are basically off unless, so like SRC and release team have a private Slack channel that's like the security release channel, right? Where we will ask SRC or we will ask release team to be ready for upcoming CVEs, and we'll provide them with like the metadata and stuff, right? So in that sense, release team is aware well in advance that something is coming, right? So in a sense, that could be the trigger for, okay, this month we are going to do a release, so this month we should have the periodic jobs actually running.
Does that do any kind of early disclosure? Oh, I see
You
that
can already tell when SRC is going to do stuff when we start making placeholder issues everywhere.
It's true.
So if you're just watching the SRC members, you can get a very good sense of there is an upcoming something. But I'm kind of fine with that. Like it doesn't tell you the severity, doesn't tell you the component. It's just there's something coming. Like yes-ish. Like I have considered like going and making like 100 placeholder issues, so that way I can use them as like my it's like my heap of stored issues. Um, but yeah, by the time I get to it, you can pretty much tell that like I've had DIMs like message me like, why did you just open 3 CV placeholder issues, Mo? I was like, well, you know why, DIMs, like. uh,
So this is like that. I don't know if you all saw that news report a while ago about there was like a pizza place by the White House that they could tell there was going to be an international incident when the pizza orders at this Domino's or whatever it was, like started skyrocketing for delivery to the sit room or whatever. It's like, all of your national security people suddenly need a lot more after hours pizza. Something's coming.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, it is a side channel. It does leak some information. It seems like an okay cost to pay for possibly like potentially significantly lower costs on the infra that would otherwise
Yeah.
be just sitting around doing a bunch of work that doesn't necessarily.
Plus, there might be a security issue in Kubernetes. Feels like a sentence that could be said at any time. And it doesn't necessarily tell people a lot to go look at other than Kubernetes.
Yeah, and if you find something, then you can make a report on HackerOne and get some money. Just go do that now anyway. um, okay, yeah. So two things I've gotten so far is see if we can extrapolate costs and see if we can figure out the cadence for these things, and how they would almost certainly end up being different than the regular ones. It'd be really strange to have a point release that there was no value in updating to, and it was just there because, well, we did a 130.7, so now we also have to have a 126.7 just because the numbers all have to line up or something. That would be kind of weird.
I mean, they never line up, right? Because they're always staggered. So there's always some, they're never the same. So I don't think it matters from that perspective.
All right, Mo, do you want to take us through anything more in this doc? I know we kind of we did the in medias res. Let's dive in and talk about all the topics. But
Jeremy, could you scroll up? I'm trying to remember.
Sure.
In here. One point that had originally been brought up is like when I discussed it with SRC, we were wondering if we cared about the CVSS rating. I think we came up with the idea that it didn't, like, if you care about compliance, like if a CV does apply, it doesn't really matter if it's a low or medium or high. Like you're expected to fix it eventually. So to like consider ignoring certain ratings of CVSS just saying like it wasn't helpful. Like it would just be kind of annoying for someone trying to consume these builds. So that's why that's not sort of there as a relevant factor. The asterisk being that we don't, like today when we fix CVs for dependencies at like master, we won't backport those if there wasn't actually any impact. So like we'll make it so that over time those CVs like go away from your scanners, but we don't try to backport them at all anyway. So those don't fit within this, which isn't like a divergence. It's just sort of the state of affairs. And I have very strict verbiage in there, which is basically no other backports will be considered. I can see that maybe like over like a long period of time that this could change, but I feel like as a starting point, that to me felt much safer and much easier to agree on and sort of learn from than trying to be like it's backports of CVs and any critical regression and data loss and like really bad bug here. Like then I don't even know if we could realistically do any of the optimizations of running infra-less, because I feel like
there would likely be more of those things. I mean, technically that's the criteria for backporting to any release branch, right? Like it needs to be a critical, needs to be data loss. The criteria is pretty clear. I think we haven't always held to that. We've done like maybe a little bit more. But I think Jordan's regression data shows that when we stick to those, there's much less risk of bringing back regressions. I have a question on the text I have highlighted right now, and maybe that comes down to timing. If we're saying that it has to have the official CVE feed label and a CVE assigned, that label doesn't get applied until after things are published, correct?
I guess I'm trying to remember what the order of events there is. So I think the way we have done it is that like for embargoed CVEs, the issue and like the email and the lift of the embargo is effectively before the release. And the reason it is that way is in the past, it wasn't that way. And it was confusing as someone under the embargo that why the public metadata was all over the place, but
Yeah,
the
but
embargo hadn't lifted, and so now you as a distributor was stuck sitting there twiddling your thumbs and like knowing everything was public, but knowing that you were told not to start doing your releases until like a later date. So we've tried to flip the order where we accept the fact that the embargo will lift, and then PRs will get made, and then releases will be cut, and there's like there's a delay. And at the end of the release process isn't instant, right? It can take like an order of a day, and it will probably take more than a day if we have a bunch of different branches. So like it doesn't necessarily have to be that, like my intent with that line was just like you can't just decide that something is a security issue without the SRC saying it's a
Right.
security issue, and like this is the mechanism we have. So yeah, I mean it could be like will eventually include like that could be right, as long as it's in the process of, it doesn't necessarily have to be an ordering requirement.
If what you're describing there can be summarized by is an official SRC security issue, would including that text explicitly help say like it must be an official SRC security issue, paren, include this, include that, include the other. Because then like if the criteria get things added or removed in the future, cool, but like you're still on target for is an official. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a set or superset or a subset, but like if that's 100% matching, maybe calling it that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that was at least my intent there. So I can update that to be more direct on what I was trying to do instead of like trying to enumerate the criteria.
I mean, put them as a parenthetical, but like if there is a known quantity that that parenthetical would summarize or would enumerate the criteria of, but it has a label, I would say like that might be help with the clarity of understanding for people.
I think the only other thing I had was at the very bottom, there's the whole like question of should it be 24 or 26? Because it was, I think the 14 comes from 12 plus 2, like that you get a year and like 2 months to update. I didn't know if it was like, okay, you get 2 years now and then 2 months to update. I don't know. I don't know. I was personally fine with 24 just because like I feel like we got to figure out all the infra costs anyway. And so like if it's expensive as is, I don't know if I want to add 2 extra months, too expensive. But
2 years seems to be the way the industry is trending, right? I mean, the big clouds and Rancher and stuff are all lining up in 2 years for their LTS versions.
right.
If you give people 2 years, then they can do their updates 21 months in if they want. That's a them question, not a you question. Because if you're going to say, we're giving you the grace period, blah, 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 then like, oh, but 2 months isn't long enough for a grace period. I actually need 4. I feel like there's an endless morass.
Yeah, people will take whatever you give them, and it's hard to take it back afterwards. So I would rather, if we're going to propose something, I'd even go 23 months or just like kind of skate right on that line. Because you don't, yeah, people need to update more often, and this makes life easier in some situations, especially regulatory environments where you can take a year to get your approval, then you take a couple months to go to production. So you need that kind of 2 years makes your life easier, but going past 2 lives, I think there's diminishing returns unless you've got a commercial relationship.
Great.
Yeah, but this is awesome that you put this together. It's cool.
Yeah, I think that's what I had. I don't know if anyone else has any comments or feedback, but I don't know if there's anything else on the agenda for today.
I think the only thing that put on the agenda was just go back through some pulled our action items to see if anybody had any updates. But I think this is cool. Does anybody have any feedback? Thanks for joining us today, Nick. I know it's probably not a great time.
Yeah. So to that, I've got another meeting at 1 a.m. my time. So I was like, oh, I can actually make the midnight meeting.
That's a fun time for a meeting.
Yeah.
From your
believe it.
perspective as from the last time around, what are your thoughts on something like this?
Yeah, so we talked about basically something like this before, and it always came down to, but how much is it going to cost? You know, that's why that's why I was also asking the questions about, you know, how hard it would be for the release team. You know, if there's like an optional extra releases, that feels like something that would really suck until we got some extra tooling around it for the release team, so the people cost would be high in addition to the extra CI costs. You know, having a bunch of extra manual work that maybe you do and maybe you don't in a particular month feels like a recipe for people spending lots of time to me. So yeah, but I mean the other side of that is the more you have to do, the more you do those security releases, the more likely someone is going to get really annoyed and do something about it and build more tooling. But yeah, I don't know. I think feel like the release team has enough on them already that that putting more on them is probably not going to be helpful. But aside from things like that, like I think it's a really great idea. This at least will. This will give people but now LTS is 2 years for security patches. But like, you know, people. When you announce this, the message people are going to hear is Kubernetes is now supported for 2 years, regardless of what the star says, which may be good or bad, right? Like, you know, I think people who care will go and read the thing and be like, oh, okay, it's security fixes only. That makes sense. And I think the no CVE, no backport is the cleanest way to do this to start with. As you said, Mo, I feel like we don't look at CVSS score. It feels like it might be a potential optimization in the future if we start getting a bunch of low CVSS things that end up people spend a whole bunch of effort to backport. It's like maybe we change that, but it's better to go with something simple to start with. I agree. So yeah, like when we talked about this before, like basically we just at that time we had no data about how much it would cost and all that sort of stuff, and so we just sort of punted it to future us. And I guess now the bills come due.
Well, at least we do have more various cloud credits available to kind of shuffle up and deal out than we had years ago. So
yes, definitely. Yeah, because back then it was all Google only, so that also didn't help.
What do you want to do next with this, Mo?
So I'm gonna I'll update the doc with the three things, like fix some of the verbiage, add I think those 2 other open questions in there. I was just gonna try to take it to each one of the key stakeholders in their biweekly meetings and just present it there and get more feedback. And like once I've collected that from all of them, I don't know, come back here and be like, here's my collected feedback. What should we do next? Because I don't think we have all the right people in this meeting right now to like necessarily have strong next steps other than let's just keep talking to the right people, right? Like for example, like I'm sure like Ben Elder has like a good
Thoughts?
sense of like how much is this going to cost, right? And so like I want to hear his feedback, I want to hear his criticisms, right? Like in a sense I want to hear all the negative feedback, not the positive feedback, so that way we can work through it.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't be more help there, man.
Yeah, no, I mean I have a sense that the cost is the biggest thing, right? But I don't know the numbers, and I don't have enough sense of like, well, what does the new credits do, and like, is spreading out more of the tests across the new infra going to actually make a difference, or is it just simply not enough, and we have to get more credits from all the providers? Those types of things. To me, I think if we do need more credits, I feel like this is a relatively easy pitch. Like you're already going to spend a ton of money supporting your LTS thingy. downstream provider. Just do the work upstream and move on. Like it'll save yourself a lot of grief.
Bridget asked in the chat, is our goal a cap? I think that would be the logical like exit point for this. A cap for SIG release and probably Kate's infra to own. Probably SIG release because it's changing the releases.
Yeah, it'll be one of those process caps that effectively GAs the moment it's created because it's about changing a process. And
Yeah, the moment it merges, yeah.
Oh yeah, one of the things I made sure was in there that none of this was meant to be retroactive. Like I don't want to change any existing practice. Like whenever we do get some agreement, as far as I'm concerned, it can start on that release, like any change at all, just so that in a sense that gives you a window of time to adapt instead of saying, oh, all these old things that are about to be EOL, well, sucks. Those aren't EOL now. Those are security patched now. Like, yeah, I'm sure the community would love it if instantly lots of old things got extra support. I'm going to say that for our own sanity, we're going to slowly roll this in and learn across those release boundaries instead of just adding a bunch of work to everyone's plate all at the same time.
I'd agree there.
Do you want to take this to all the SIGs yourself, or do you want help splitting those out so you don't have to attend 5 different meetings?
Oh yeah, I guess if you want to take it to SIG release, that's fine, Jeremy. And I can see. I don't know if we have. Wait, what was my list of stakeholders? No, I obviously I already took it to SRC, so that part is fine. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so I have.
It's infra SIG testing.
Yeah, so I don't know if we have any representatives of those here. To collect feedback on. But like I could think you're totally fine to take it to SIG release, and then we can try to figure out who's like if I should take it to those other places.
I think there's a Kate's infra biweekly meeting tomorrow. It would be at 2 p.m. Mountain Time.
Mountain Time 1 hour removed from me.
No, 2.
2. Okay, so it's either 4 or 12. I'm trying to remember which direction Mountain Time.
That way, so I think it'd be 5 your time. Sorry,
No, it'd be 4 his time.
4 time. Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
I just did math wrong.
Math is hard. Time zones are hard. Okay, so I could try to take that tomorrow. I'll put that on my calendar. But yeah, so I don't know when the next SIG release.
There's one today. I can take it today if you want.
Okay, that'll be great. Yeah, and then keep going. Wednesdays biweekly at 20 UTC for kids. Okay, cool. Anything else, y'all?
Well, I think that's everything. I'm going to open a PR today for the annual report. It's a little bit late for the working group, but I'll share a PR in the Slack channel if anybody wants to take a look and provide comments before we ask it that it's merged. All right.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this, Mo. I think it's interesting. I'll bring it up at SIG release today and provide any feedback that comes from that.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see you all briefly.
Yeah. See ya.
See you around.
Have a good day or good evening.